Hello and welcome.
Didn't you give me trouble previously for using that phrase?
We're glad to have you with us.
Hi
there. I'm trying to think of all the different greetings. You're watching Throttle House. And I'm James.
This is the Carmudgeon show.
Yes!
What is that?
Doug DeMuro. This! I'm trying to, who else does what? I don't know anyone else's intros. This is the Carmudgeon show. My name is Jason Cammisa.
I am Derek Moron Tam-Scott. No, that's your middle name.
Moron is my middle name, but that we're going to find out why later in the episode where I go
apeshit.
A little bit.
Jason has points of view, shockingly, and is not afraid to discuss them.
And pepper them with a lot of F-bombs.
This episode is about the newly re-engineered but substantially cosmetically unchanged Rivian R1S and R1T.
And a discussion about people's hatred of EVs in general, and
self-driving,
a
little bit of that.
We have that too. Plus Subarus. We do make fun of Subarus. We almost apologize.
We always talk about Subarus and Sacco. It's just,
and we did, yeah.
It's always about Subaru and Sacco.
We're
doing EVs.
We're going to do a new Cars and Coffee thing called Subarus and Sacco.
Oh God, no! I don't want any more Subarus anywhere.
Neither of them. Interesting stuff on the Rivian. Interesting stuff about Subaru and our impressions of Subaru drivers, and some other stuff. More importantly, the Carmudgeon Show is part of the Haggerty Podcast Network, and if you like this content, you might consider joining the Haggerty Drivers Club, which includes unlimited flatbed tows for all of your classic vehicles.
Thank you for including the word vehicle, so we didn't have to have the disambiguation about classic literature.
Will they tow
a box of bricks?
Car?
A classic electric car?
A classic electric car. Get an EV1 and find out. Also, unlimited access
to our award-winning magazine.
Unlimited access to our valuation tools, special VIP tickets and events.
That's all of them.
And much more.
And much more. And also the clap.
It does not include the clap, Derek.
I included it for you.
I'm sorry that you have the clap.
Oh my.
Yeah, I'm serious today.
Is that triple shot? Well, this episode is going to be
triple shot energy extra strength. I don't want this, but there's no coffee in here and I need caffeine.
Well, God help us all.
Stop. Okay, it's your job to stop me from drinking.
What's this?
This is the thing.
Appears to be a Viper chair.
That is. Is that what that's here? We forgot to mention this episode is proudly sponsored by Viper Industrial, the renowned creator of Viper chairs.
Viper is a family-owned enterprise in Green Bay, Wisconsin, where innovation intersects with products that are proudly crafted in the USA.
Viper has not merely redefined the workshop chair, they're transforming every product in the workshop.
Each is meticulously fashioned without compromise. Industrial-grade foam padding, I guess that's here. Mm-hmm. All steel construction can confirm. Grade 8 yellow zinc-coated hardware and 4-inch industrial-grade casters.
It's enduring quality you can rely on day in and day out.
Viper's mission is to deliver products that surpass its customers' expectations every single time.
In other words, if within 30 days of your purchase, for any reason you're dissatisfied, they will refund your money plus an additional 5%.
When was the last time you saw a 105% money-back guarantee?
Never. From the workshop to the grand stage, Viper is the champion's choice. Discover the distinction for yourself by visiting their website at http://www.viperindustrial.com.
With a Y. Viper with a Y.
Viper with
it should
a Y.
be noted.
Yeah. There is a link in the thing below.
Oh, yes. There you go. And if you use the coupon code Haggerty, you'll save $50, 50 of your hard-earned dollars, presumably, depending on how hard you work, I suppose, on your purchase.
You know she works hard for the money, right?
She works hard. Oh,
we're not singing. Oh, I tricked him into thinking we were back to the good old days where we started singing. Yes, I think I'm going to remove this very heavy and beautifully. Oh my God, they are not messing around. Good thing Jake lifts things for a living. Okay, thank you, Viper Chairs. And back to my over-exuberance of caffeine. Oh, next week we should start the ad read with an hour after I drank 3 of these.
Oh, God.
Everyone, look, on YouTube, you can watch things at 0.25x. which in my
And
case
I'm
would be
going
normal
to
speed.
have a very deep voice as I speak in slow motion.
It doesn't do that. It doesn't
doesn't
change
do
the That was my favorite answering machine message that I did back in the day when digital answering machines first came out. My joke was always to pretend that it was a tape machine and that it had failed. And so I made my outgoing message. Hi, you've reached Jason at 414. Beep. And I would come home and there would be like 32 messages on the machine of just hysterical laughter. Like people just could not catch their breath. I should do that for my outgoing message on my cellular telephone.
Nobody leaves voicemails anymore.
That's true. Actually, I think my outgoing message is, are you kidding? Stop right now. I'm never going to listen to this.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Okay, there's one thing I'd like to address before we start.
Waymo.
Oh, there are two things I'd like to address.
Okay.
That last week's Waymo episode was possibly my favorite, Carmudgeon. I will say that I sort of appeared to be a little bit paid by Waymo, which the audience...
Evangelical. People were like, you just like innovation.
I was am in love with how well that technology works. I love good tech. I mean, it's the reason why Cybertruck got the good review it did, right? It's new, it's different.
When well executed.
When well executed, even though...
And I will say that it's well executed.
Right. And what the audience missed out on was me having an argument with you while we were off camera months ago, where you were just like steam coming from your ears. Fuck those fucking things.
It was Steam is specifically oriented at Cruise. It should be known. It's specifically GM.
But it still was. I mean, it's so perfectly on brand for us to be curmudgeonly about new technology of self-driving anything and electric everything. But it was really rewarding to watch from my perspective, not on camera, you come around. Because you fucking hate those things.
Well,
and now
I hate
you're
the
like,
Cruise
wow.
ones. I think that if I had been riding in a Cruise one, I would have had a very different experience. I have watched those Cruise ones do so many things that are dumb, whereas I have no specific recollection of ever interacting in public with a Waymo and finding it to be problematic other than the issue that I repeatedly highlighted, which is that it's too tentative about stuff.
Right, i.e. too safe. The reality, though, is, new technology sucks. And we all hate it until it's done well. And once it's done well, it's a game changer. And I didn't think I realized how much hatred there was in the world for the idea of a self-driving taxi. And
the comments section certainly revealed that.
Shit. Look, we did actually say this should replace human drivers. We're not talking about us or you guys. We're talking about taxis. And there's a very big difference between driving recreational and transportation needs.
Ubers, I think, who are driven by the general public as opposed to professional drivers. Right. I think there is a standard of conduct among professional drivers. Usually.
There should be.
They're held to a higher standard if they are driving for a living, whether it's long haul trucking or, presumably this is true for taxis too. And to sort of crowdsource that has predictably poor results for road safety and general frustration and road rage.
That was the reason I brought up my friend Keith in that episode and failed to disclose that, he was a Bosch engineer, but he now makes his living doing sort of Uber XL but more, not Uber XL, Uber Black, whatever the good stuff is, but also
he drives around in like an Audi A8 or
he's got
whatever.
an A8, he's got a Lucid Air now. He's always had cool cars like GLS 63 AMG. But he's a car guy and he's a really good driver. And so when you have there's a difference between a Lyft and car service. And he's sort of car service. He's a professional limo driver effectively. I didn't realize how much hate there would be for EVs, and self-driving cars, but we also forget we live in a city where Ubers are everywhere, and that's just not the case throughout most of the country. And also, I am shocked at the number of people who think we should do a comparison or do this again in a Tesla running on supervised FSD being full self-driving, which it most certainly is not. I don't think I can say this clear enough to all of the people who made that comment. There is no fucking contest between what Waymo does and what Tesla does. Yep. No, you are not getting in the backseat of a full FSD car and risking your life. And if you are, you deserve whatever comes your way. And I'm sorry to say it that way, but that is not ready for prime time. Not even close. And the Waymo was, absolutely in the backseat, no problem. So,
yeah. Completely different kettle of fish. I was surprised by the number of those comments too. I expected more, especially from evangelical Tesla people. I thought would be the ones to say this. I would anticipate they would fully understand the difference.
There's no contest. I mean, I don't trust autopilot or FSD on the highway. I mean, I'm still sort of like there ready to catch. And as we said, every corner is connecting the dots and it's jagged and just I mean, the difference between, putting and I mean this without a joke, like putting a blind person at the wheel and telling them what to do versus a really good driver.
Yeah.
That day. But enough of the Waymo shit. We have a Rivian to cover. Which is why I'm...
Did we cover both of the things you wanted to cover before we started covering things that we needed to cover?
Yes, we did.
Okay.
I think we did. Whatever. Who knows? I don't have any control of what comes out of my mouth. But I am going to interrupt the Rivian discussion and say
we have not started. So is it really an interruption?
It's really important because I went to another state to drive the Rivian. I flew up to Seattle in a place called Washington. If you're from the Pittsburgh area, you would call it Washington. And I was allowed to interact with other human beings, which is something I don't often do. And they told me that Subarus aren't really a problem where they live.
That's because everyone is a problem where they live.
No. Nobody was, for the record, a native Washingtonian.
Oh, these are people.
These are people scattered from all over. Yeah.
Oh, and they don't have comatose Subaru driver syndrome.
No, I think it's this. So the funny thing is, I got a text from somebody I haven't heard from in forever. A guy who used to work who was the parts guy at the local dealership here. And he retired and I haven't talked to him in a while. And he texted me randomly, first text in our thread in who knows how long. Hey, just a little shout out. I really enjoy the Carmudgeon show, especially the Subaru bashing. Then he went on like bitching about the sad belief that their purchase has any value at all, unless you believe in a barely rolling speed bump to be any kind of value to the other motorists on the road. I laughed myself sick from this message. I love Kent. He was great.
This is like someone local in the Bay Area who's having a little bit Bay Area Subaru experience, the Northern California Subaru experience, which apparently is not universal. Yeah,
I sort of got I got that text message, laughed myself genuinely to the point of needing to go to the little boys' room. And then I'm talking to all these people like, really? Subarus are that bad? I'm like, no, it's an actual thing. And they're like, what about Altimas? So we had this whole conversation.
Altima's a completely different category. Altima is sort of negligence, reckless.
Yeah.
And Subaru is comatose.
They're opposite ends of the spectrum.
They are.
And then I was on the Reddit and I saw something on the Reddit that made me screenshot it and send it to you and then redact that statement and then that sending and decide that I was going to show it to you on air.
Oh, okay.
This works. God damn it.
Just show me your small monitor. Is it mirroring or?
It's mirroring. Oh, Jesus. Now you guys know what my background looks like. What in the shit? There it is. Okay. So this is a chart according to Lending
you
Tree.
Did send this to me.
Okay, I thought I did.
Yeah. You called it the Subaru thing.
Yeah, this is a Subaru thing. So the worst brands this is a chart for those of you listening who that is entitled Brands with the Worst Drivers in the U.S., defined as driving incidents per 1,000 drivers.
And driving incidents includes accidents, DUI, speeding, and citations.
And so this is from the Lending Tree 2023, unless this was just made up by somebody who put it there because it is shit on the internet, so you never know. But Subaru is in third place for the worst drivers in the country.
Huh. Okay.
Which, I mean, I find speeding, yeah, and if on negative day, but apparently Subaru drivers, so the worst in the industry is
Well, you
Ram.
know what it is it's all the people who are driving around in WRXs who are overcompensating for all of the comatose people in Foresters and Legacy Outbacks.
It must be because there's no way. I mean, okay, so it doesn't say what the nationwide average is, but the average Ram driver, and Ram are the worst apparently, have 33 accidents, DUI, speedings, or citations per 1,000 drivers per year, I guess, in the year ending November 14th, 2023. Tesla's 31, Subaru's 30, And then you have a two-way tie for fourth place with Volkswagen and Mazda at 28, a three-way tie for fifth place, BMW, Lexus, Infiniti, and then a five-way tie for Hyundai, Toyota, Jeep, Kia, Honda, and then Audi and Nissan are at 24. Now, we don't know where the average is, and maybe this is just this is probably the worst, and we don't know what the best are. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I just absolutely love this. That Subaru, we're going to ignore the fact that Volkswagen is next.
Well, a lot of the times when I see this data broken out by model, the Subaru WRX makes frequent appearances, and so does the VW GTI. Yeah. And now that the standard Golf is gone and you only get the GTI here, I think that probably...
Yeah, but GTI sales are we're talking 8,000 out of
well, incidents per 1,000 drivers, so it's normalized.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. Volkswagen sells very few GTIs
proportionally to their total
Atlases.
Yeah, sure. Okay, yes,
Passats and Jettas. And by the way, same thing with WRXs and SCIs. I mean,
the other thing also that you'll notice is that Ram is pulled out separately as its own make, which means it's exclusively pickup trucks, and so the rest of the Dodge product line, such as the van, do they still make Dodge vans? No.
There's a Pacifica, Chrysler,
but that's not a Dodge.
No, not a Dodge. Dodge
the rest
only
of
has
the Dodge products, whatever they may be.
The rest of the Dodge product. Now that the
what is it?
Now that the 300 Challenger and Charger are dead, there is just the truck. Is there? Hold on. There no. They killed the truck.
Durango?
What's the Compass?
That's a Jeep.
The Jeep. Whatever the Compass.
Journey?
Journey. No, that's dead too.
Yeah, that's
God. I should really know this.
I surely don't.
Don't call me Shirley.
Again.
Hold on. Why can I not?
In any case, so Ram pulls out specifically pickup truck drivers. I definitely have plenty of experience with unruly Ram drivers.
Yeah, I mean they are sort of well known.
The epitome of aggression.
Their site doesn't even load. We don't have anything. Hornet. That's what it was. Yeah, the Hornet, which is the Alfa Tonale, Charger, Challenger, and Durango.
I said Durango.
So it's now Hornet and Durango, big and small SUVs, nothing else. And then there will be Charger. But anyway, I laughed my ass off at this. Like the idea that Subaru drivers have more speeding and other citations here. Like
accidents. It could be.
How could you have an accident when you're not moving?
Wait, so this is not nationwide. Sound off in the comments, please, if Subaru drivers are bad in the comatose way where you are, or if that's unique to the Northern California.
Okay, so anyway, I went to a place where people are nice, and you can't get half and half or cream for your coffee. You can. My choice was oat milk or almond milk, and I am not a fan of the Pacific Northwest because everyone's so fucking wholesome and smiling and nice and slow, and I just can't deal with that as a New Yorker. Like it's negative New York. But it is really pretty. Mm-hmm. And I did get to beat up on R1S, R1T.
Which look the same?
Headlights are different. Taillights are different.
So it looks like a facelift?
Barely. Mm-hmm. This is a new badge.
This is like when Honda would go from amber indicators to clear when they did the facelift mid-cycle.
This is an interesting one because if you think back to the 1950s when car companies would have a new product out every single year and the changes were all visual, this is the opposite of that, which is kind of on brand for Rivian, which toiled in obscurity for 12 years before they ever showed the truck to anyone. And we were like, wait, where the fuck did this come from? Mm-hmm. This is a company that likes to work in the background and then surprise everyone. And nothing calls attention. There's nothing to call attention to the fact that 600 parts on this truck are new. All of which were done to improve the owner's experience, bring down costs for both construction, maintenance, and repair, and just make a better product. And that's sort of something that's interesting to not have a
flashing beacon of newness, despite a substantive re-engineering. I could tell you were trying. I read your Instagram post on this topic, and I could tell by the way that you punctuated it and your diction that you were really out of characters and you were trying to cram in as much content as possible into the character limit.
There's a lot to say. I mean, they made a lot of really substantive changes on the truck. I mean, what I didn't hear about was, for example, the way repair costs work for accidents. So I've heard kind of horror stories.
Yeah, we've definitely heard horror stories about somebody getting rear-ended at sort of crawling in traffic speeds, and it's a $42,000 repair because you have to replace the whole back of the monocoque or some absurd thing like that.
And there are certainly things that I don't find. Okay, so one of the few things, since we started with lighting, is the front light bar was white, obviously, but it could also turn green or red as a charging indicator, and it was sort of pulse. Mm-hmm. Now it's a battery level indicator, so it shows, how many segments
that's cool.
of battery, so you can just kind of glance outside and see
afar.
And they were the designer of this car is a really nice guy, he's a car guy, and his name is Jeff, and he was like giving us this demonstration, and like we're standing in the front and watching it charge, and then you can see it's got swoopy amber turn signals up front and like cool stuff. They moved also the turn signals down low outside of that bar, because so now they don't have to dim the one headlight for the turn signals. And he's showing all the stuff, and he's like, "This is really cool. This is an RGB now. It's an RGB LED array for the lighting bar. We can do anything we want with it." And I'm such an asshole, and I'm like, and yet I'm looking at their light reflecting off the back of the car, and the fucking turn signals are still red. And he was like, "What?" And I'm like, "So you put an RGB lighting in the front, red, green, and blue, 16.7 million possible colors, and you have red fucking turn signals when it's been proven for 40 years that amber turn signals actually save lives. So you want a little display over fucking people's lives?" Okay, I like the guy a lot. He's very nice. He's very funny. And he was very pissed off at me. I just see the look of fucking hate in his face. And in his defense, his explanation was like, "Okay, fair point. Like, totally got me." But the only way there are a lot of regulations that dictate the amount of surface area and luminosity from brake lights and specifically turn signals. And the only way to get enough real estate on that thin strip of light would be to expand it to make it taller, which would mean all new panels. They just don't have the real estate in there to put amber turn signals. You can flash the red ones, they're big enough, but you can't flash new additional yellow ones. There's not enough room for it. But he did point out and say that from now on, all Rivians will have amber turn signals because, of course, the Insurance Institute for Highway Safety has finally stepped in, thank God, and said, "You know what? If you don't have amber turn signals, you can't get a top safety pick plus." So I suspect.
About GD time.
Right? Matrix headlights will be joining by the way, the Rivian also has Matrix headlights now, adaptive Matrix. So, of course, the government can't get their shit together, but an independent organization of fucking insurance. I mean, insurance companies are amazing, but other insurance companies got together and are pushing that on them.
Thank God.
Right. So, but visually from the outside, you can't really tell the difference. It has all new batteries. And all new motors, which is kind of interesting. The max battery pack is now up to 420 miles of EPA range. So what is that in real world? Anywhere between 5 miles and 450, depending on how you drive. And
whether you're towing.
And so the configurations are now a 2-motor all-wheel drive, a 3-motor all-wheel drive, where there's 1 motor up front, 2 in the back. And then
what was the old arrangement?
It was originally quad. And then it went to 2. And the 2 motor was almost as fast as the quad. And the original quad motor was a Bosch motor. All 4 of them technically were Bosch motors. And then they went to a 2 motor and in-house design. Now all of the motors are in-house. And the new quad with the in-house motors would leave the old one for dead. So the tri-motor is now as quick as the old 4 motor was, which is 2.9 seconds to 60, their estimate. And the quad is 2.5 to 60, but more importantly, a 10.5 at 130 mile an hour quarter mile, which puts it ahead of, right behind a 911 Turbo S, for example. Or
why is this needed?
I don't know. But it's a pissing match between RJ and Elon is what's actually going on, without question. I mean, why else would they do this? It beats the Cybertruck. Okay, great. Now can we stop this shit? Like, that's wonderful.
And the Veyron.
It beats the Veyron. Doesn't beat the Veyron. Yeah.
It matches the Veyron to 60.
It does match the Veyron to 60. And that's with new Michelins on it. Actually, so I don't know if you knew this. PS4S, Pilot Sport 4S is now replaced by Pilot Sport S
I've heard of this.
Why have they reversed the numbers? Michelin, we just got done doing this when PSS
Pilot
became
Super Sport.
Yeah, PSS was technically PS3 because it was Pilot Sport 2, PSS, PS4, and now PSS 5. Whatever, fucking French. So with the Michelin PSS 5s, it'll bang off at 2.5 to 60. They had a bunch of trucks there with their own tire warmers on a drag strip. The first run of the day was a 243 to 60, and then quarter miles we were all in like 10.6s, 10.7s. But this was like after 30 repeated runs. Like we were not.
State of charge
Was in the low 90s the first time I got in one, and mid 80s the second time, and they were the same. It's fucking whatever. It's fucking fast. I will say that the traction control which is now done by the computers, is not as quick as the sort of Lucids of the world or even the Cybertrucks of the world. But the quad motor, which is what we drove on the drag strip, is still in development, so it's not done yet. There's still some like sort of suspension heave. It does do a little bit of a cheetah mode where the front goes down right before launch, which it now has a launch control mode, and it's doing that for weight transfer, so you don't get the big
squat,
the Carolina squat. But it doesn't. I mean, what happens is then the rear suspension bottoms out. You get a little bit of wheel spin. It cuts power for a second. It's just not quite as seamless and perfectly repeatable as some of the best. And then the big change, the big problem with this truck, I'll start that saying, has been since day one ride quality. You have off-road, the things are just unbelievable. But then on-road, it'll lower itself to a point where you just don't have enough travel that it's sort of bounding off the bump stops continually at random corners, even on semi-smooth pavement. You're sort of bung, 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 bung. And you can raise the truck, but it costs range at that point. And then it would get wallow and floaty, and you have a discrepancy front to rear. So your sort of headlights are pitching all over. That was really bad with R1S. And they did a software update last year that really smoothed out the ride. It was much, much better. It went from like F ride quality to, I would say, a solid D, which is a passing grade, but not what I expect from a 7,000 pound truck with, 16 feet of suspension travel. And now they actually removed, they changed hardware on the R1S. So the S, which was the real problem because of the extra weight in the back, they've changed.
Extra weight and wheelbase, shorter wheelbase.
Shorter wheelbase, extra weight. They've changed components because you can't fix everything with software, but it's not perfect. You still get some heaving at the back. You still get.
So it went from a D to a. B minus, C plus. Okay. What was explained to me is that the rear of the R1S is reaching the max blowout pressure that the air springs can deal with. Heavy.
It's not just heavy. It's heavy, but it's that the issue, as it was explained to me, is that the R1 family of vehicles, R1S and R1T, were both debuted with ridiculous off-road requirements. And there are just design elements that were put into that suspension for its off-road ability that are just hurting it. And there's no way around it without a fundamental re-engineering of the whole suspension system. And so they're using as much spring rate as they possibly can in the rear, as was explained to me. But then their choice is you either allow the sort of bounding around back there.
This is like a heavy spring rate thing, like driving an unloaded F-350.
Exactly.
That's
or
not towing.
So your choice is you loosen it up and allow a little bit of pitch and motion to happen at the back that's not happening at the front, or you tighten it up and then you jiggle everyone's tits off.
Yeah.
And I would say neither is acceptable because the way I feel about R1, if you guys hate electric vehicles, like I'm sorry, but R1S is kind of the vehicle that everyone dreams about when they want a Range Rover. Like it does everything Range Rover-y. It's not quite as fabulous and also not quite as expensive. But it's a really great electric alternative to a Range Rover should you be so inclined. But the ride quality has just always been is the one part where it doesn't quite get there.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's super compelling. I love those things.
How much have you driven? You've spent a bunch of time in them?
My brother has one, so I've taken it on a couple of day-long drives.
Just forget that he is it R1S quad?
It's 835 horsepower one or something like that.
Motor, which is now 1,025, conveniently 5 more than the Plaid.
We were towing with it when I was there visiting him last time, and towing, I think it's stupidly fast. Like not even to full throttle, but it's probably like a 5-second 0 to 60 while towing a 4,000-pound trailer using 70% throttle.
I mean, remember when that R1T came out, the quad motor, that first one, before it was even fully baked with traction control and whatever, I put a Cyclone on the back of it and still beat the fucking Ram TRX. Like it's that fast. And that one was limited at 112. The new one's limited at 130, which no one needs to be driving a 7,000-pound pickup truck at 130 miles an hour.
Especially while towing. I did see an incident like this occur once in Eastern Canada where there was some person in like a Lincoln, what is the blobby SUV? Not the Explorer derived one. There's a blobby Lincoln SUV. I don't know. Anyway, they were towing.
What year is this?
Like within the last 10 years. I don't know.
A bunch of them. There's Corsair.
It looks like a smushed blobby. I don't know. Whatever. I don't care. Anyway, they're towing a trailer at like 90 miles an hour. It's a 2-wheeled trailer, like a little travel RV trailer thing at like 90 miles an hour. And I'm like, man, that's deeply inadvisable. And then I'm, up the road, I smell rubber and I'm like, uh-oh. And then I see them on the side of the road and there's tire shrapnel all over. What were you expecting?
I don't understand what it is about cars that have tires that work and trailers that never do. Like, it just seems to be trailer
tires are rated. Well, you shouldn't. They always limit, speed limit when towing 55 miles an hour. You're like, just not supposed to go.
That's not real.
Like the signage. Signage says 55
California.
miles an hour. Oh, is that a California thing?
It's a California thing. Yeah, you can do 80 in your truck and trailer in Texas.
Really?
Yeah. I don't think any other. Again, comment section. I've never lived in another state where vehicles towing something have a lower speed limit. Huh. I mean, sometimes you'll say trucks 55, regular traffic 65, but trailer. Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, I've definitely done 100 and something miles an hour towing stuff on drag courses, doing those stupid stunts. It's fucking horrifying.
Yeah, absolutely terrifying, especially if you have sketchy aero.
Yeah. And you always have sketchy weight distribution, and you can't, you're trying to. This is why range. Yeah. This is. I think we mentioned this on the podcast
fairly recently. I think.
Yeah, this is a company that's sort of making hybridized trailers with a battery and electric motors in the trailer that they can wag the dog, right? So they're smart enough to be able to use brakes and regen to actually control the vehicle up ahead.
Not to mention, of course, the efficiency. Increase
40%
for the towing
or something.
vehicle.
Yeah, they just did a bunch of press releases. In fact, I may meet up with those guys later this week.
Exciting product.
In which case, maybe I'll be able to experience it, talk about it on the podcast.
You're going to drive the trailer?
I don't know, ride in the trailer. But yeah, so other things that Rivian did sort of quietly was upgrade the electrical architecture of the car. So one of the problems with Rivian's was vampire drain. So while your car's sitting, your battery's going flat. This is a problem with Tesla's Sentry mode, for example, because it's using a lot of electricity. And the sort of phantom drain on the Rivians was caused by obviously computers being active. But what it was doing was pulling the 12-volt battery down. And then once the 12-volt battery was getting to a critical point, it would turn on the DC-DC converter that converts the high voltage from the battery pack to the 12 volts, and then we're 14, and would recharge that lead acid battery and then turn back off. And that charging one battery from another is highly inefficient. And so there's a new DC-DC converter that's active all the time. So it just floats the 12 volt system.
Trickle charge.
And so they're now claiming lowest phantom draw in the industry. So that's a huge improvement for customers. Like that doesn't happen on the e-Golf, for example, because it can't turn on the DC. The 12 volt battery will just go dead. So it's just like a regular car in that regard. But they did a revamp to the electrical architecture of the car where they they reduced the number of major modules from 17 to 7, I believe. I should probably have my notes
pull up your notes because there was a whole bunch of statistics in there that I thought were quite compelling.
Okay, so more than 600 parts are changed on a car, which I don't know what that is in proportion.
Yeah, I don't know the bill of materials.
So the heating system became a heat pump, which is one of those things that defies physics, because
Yes.
a heat pump can actually put out more heat or extract more heat from the air than you put into the system, which is wild. You put 5 kilowatts into a resistive heater, and at the most, you'd get 5 kilowatts worth of heat out of it. A heat pump doesn't work that way.
Yes, and the reason why is that it is pulling energy out of the environment, using the energy to... this is why, like your refrigerator, right? It's warm, the air coming out, it's rejected heat. And if you were to run it in reverse or put that in outside, God, this is a little bit nerdy.
No, I think people need to know this stuff. Because they're going to keep hearing heat pump stuff.
Yeah, a heat pump is basically like your refrigerator or your air conditioner, which is to say you insert electricity and you use it to transfer heat from one place to another. So in the case of your refrigerator, it's transitioning heat out of the box and into your kitchen, and that's why when you have no socks on as a child, you sit at the base of the refrigerator. Did everyone do this or just me?
To warm your feet up?
Yeah. When my feet were cold, I would sit in front of the refrigerator on the floor. No? Okay. Well...
we had forced air heat, so I would sit with my...
Yeah, I would do that too if we had the heat on, but I don't want to heat the whole neighborhood. Well, Dad, the windows are all closed. I still don't want to turn on the... Anyway. So I use the heat from the refrigerator. So what it does is basically you use the electricity to move heat from one place to another, and you can do this and run it in reverse, and then it's an air conditioner. And so a lot of houses will have heat pumps, and it's basically you run it one way in the summer and run one way in the winter. And even if it's... there's a minimum threshold. If it gets down to like 10 or 12 degrees, you can't really pull any heat out of the machinery. The way it's designed isn't capable of pulling heat out of there. And so if you're in a really cold environment, a heat pump is not a great idea for that reason if it's pulling it out of the ambient environment. However, you can introduce a ground-coupled heat pump, which means putting a bunch of loops underground, and then the ground's always like 50 degrees, and you can pull heat out of that.
Well, that doesn't work in a car.
That doesn't work in a car unless it has a very long cord.
But yeah, no, I did once live in a house with a geothermal heat pump. So,
that's kind of freaking magical because in the summertime, you can pull 50-degree underground energy, and then in the wintertime 50 degrees is plenty warm for a heat pump to work. So that's kind of the
dream
magic solution, but it obviously requires like digging a huge hole and putting
and it also in my case didn't work. And so what you then have to do is almost all heat pump systems from what I know have an emergency sort of resistive heater that goes in for use, especially when you're in the Midwest or
yeah, for really like it'll be the system will be designed to operate for 95% of the days, and then for those 5% of the days where it's so cold that the heat pump doesn't work, then it'll introduce resistive heating, and then you're just spending a lot of money on electricity.
And so heat pumps are important in EVs where efficiency is the most important thing because you can easily
whether you can make it or not.
Yeah, you can easily destroy your range. I mean, on a car with a battery as small as the e-Golf and traditional heat, I can turn on the heat and lose half of my predictive
And why is
range.
it that heated seats draw from somewhere else? Because one of my friends was commuting in Indiana in the winter in a Nissan Leaf. And it was such that the range impacts of using the resistive heater were tremendous, but for some reason they were allowed to use heated seats. And
it's not pulling from somewhere else. They're a resistive heater in the same way.
But it's a more efficient way to transfer heat to an occupant by conduction rather than
you're talking
convection.
About maybe 100 watt. I don't know what they're rated. All I know is that I've put heated seat elements in other cars and they have like 5 amp or 10 amp fuses on them, and a 10 amp fuse at 12 volts would be 120 watts. So you're talking a peak of 100 watts, which is 0.1 kilowatt, or a tenth of a kilowatt, versus the resistive heater in the e-Golf, for example, is 5 kilowatts. So if that thing is on full blast,
that's like 7 horsepower.
And it's also heating the air coming in. So it's 40 degrees outside, for example, and it wants to heat, it's got to add 30 degrees to that, all of the air coming in versus heating up something to your body temperature and then just maintaining that, or a couple degrees above. So
the transfer via conduction as opposed to convection.
And
from the air.
Yeah.
From the air, convection from the air.
And that's why heated steering wheels and heated seats are included on almost every electric vehicle, because they know you can destroy your range or keep the heat at 60 instead of 70, warm all of the surface, the places that you touch, and you'll feel the same. You'll be just as comfortable. So they switched to heat pump. These are just my notes. I'll just go through them as I wrote them. Already was the most efficient pickup on the market, electric pickup on the market, I guess. Pickup overall because no ICE pickup is going to get there. But now it's 400 miles, greater than 400 miles of range. So
what is the battery pack size?
So there are 3 of them. There are 3. The standard pack is LFP, which is a non-cylindrical battery, which is interesting. So they are plates of batteries, and they have different chemistries. And I believe I was just told yesterday by a friend, and I'm not a battery chemistry nerd yet, but I probably should become one. We all probably should.
We know someone you can study with.
Introduce me to that person. Oh, that's you.
No.
Okay, damn. They deal with storage at high rates of charge better. So like the cylindrical batteries don't like to sit at 100% charge. Mm-hmm. So the small battery is 92.5 usable kilowatt hours. The large pack is 109.4, and the max pack, as pronounced in Detroit, is 141.5 usable, which is still far less than the 200 kilowatt hour pack that, like, for example, the Hummer EV uses.
Yeah, I was just going to
that gets 200
that
miles.
example.
This is 400.
Yeah, because the whole rest of the thing is so damn inefficient.
Right. So those new battery, I'll jump around a little bit. We'll come back to that. But that's combined with the new electrical architecture, which was domain-based and is now zonal.
Whatever that means.
Well, this is interesting because this is what Tesla did with the Cybertruck. So Tesla's Cybertruck, I think it was 4 quadrants. Obviously, always 4 quadrants, but I'm pretty sure they divided the vehicle into the sort of the front module in the Cybertruck, back module, and then each side. And so there are computers. Those are those 4 main computers. They do the main functions. But rather than having to run a wire all the way from the stereo head unit, for example, to each individual speaker, each speaker is wired directly to whatever module is closest. And the Cybertruck uses an Ethernet loop, a fully redundant Ethernet loop, to just send digital signals at a gigabit over to that module, which then converts that digital signal into whatever electrical pulse that has to go out to either a speaker or door actuator or window motor or whatever it is. It saves a lot in wiring, cabling, connectors. And all of the possibility for fuck ups, right? All the things that sort of grind cars down to a stop. And so the total number of large ECUs in the car went from 17 to 7. And they did a bunch of intelligent things like redesigned the case. So on the previous ones, the case was the sort of external water sealing thing, but the connector itself that you would plug in a wire to was on the board, soldered onto the board, which meant that if anything tugged on that wire, it would pull on effectively the board and potentially break a solder and fuck it up. They went to a whole new mounting strategy where the connector is actually mounted on the rigid exterior of it and then connected internally on sort of, I guess, doesn't need to be flexible way. So when you're pulling on the connector, you're only pulling on the exterior of the unit, and you're going to stop shit from breaking that internally. In that way. Yeah. They went to eFuses, like Tesla did with 3 and Y first, and now Cybertruck. So there's no reason for fuses. I mean, do you have a fucking fuse block on your phone or your laptop? Like,
I have no idea.
Exactly, because you don't need to. If there's a circuit that shorts out, you plug your phone in after you run a hot tub, and it says, the connector's wet. You sure you want to do this? How about we don't? And then you can either wait or force it, and it will try it anyway. That's an eFuse. That's the same thing where the computer's measuring the current drop or the resistance across it and saying, let's not put any power there. Of course, I'm a troublemaker, and I'm like, excuse me. So what happens if you plug in your 1500 watt hairdryer to a USB-C port? And they're like, that's not going to happen. And I'm like, have you seen the YouTube channel on customer states? Like, people do stupid shit. I'm like, okay, fine. I shove a fork in the USB circuit. What happens? And they're like, well, it will just turn it off. And I'm like, well, how do I turn it back on? And everyone's looking at each other. I'm like, you bitches need to fucking figure this out, because your customer's they're going to shit. They're going to actually smear fucking feces.
Fecal matter.
Right. Salty, conductive fecal matter in these fucking lighter sucks. And they're like, we got rid of the lighter.
What? So how do you Valentine 1?
How do you Valentine 1? I gave them so much shit about this.
Or does Valentine 1 now work on USB-C?
No, but it needs to. Okay, so Mike Valentine, if you're listening, time for USB-C. But we're going to get back to this because I have one huge problem with the truck other than ride quality, which is a small problem.
So I'm like, just called it a huge problem. That's a small problem.
Huh?
You just said I have one huge problem, which is a small problem.
No, sorry, not the ride quality is the small problem. There's another huge problem that I do have with the truck, which is a potential do not buy, like a potential deal breaker for me. But I'm like, should you get a note like, hey, your fuse just popped for your right fog light? Like, would you like me to try it again? Or would you like to monitor this or whatever? And they're like, that's a really great idea. Anyway, so they got rid of the fuses, 17 down to 7 ECUs, and saved 1.6 miles of wiring, which is hilarious because I'm doing research on the E31 8 Series, and that car had 2.5 kilometers of wiring in the whole car.
Which is 1.6 miles.
Which is 1.6 miles. A little more than that. But I was like, wow. But they're 44 pounds of copper. And copper is pretty expensive.
Yes. Everybody who has ever tried to charge their EV and found that it had no cord. No.
Oh, because they got chopped
had no
off.
cord because some drug-addled human somewhere took the cord in order to...
You would consider that person a human? Subhuman? You're stealing fucking electrical cords. You're subhuman. But anyway, also removed 80 connectors, 600 wires from the car, and completely eliminated the dash harness. And I have pictures of it that I'll put in there. Like, that's insane. That's so, again, build of ease, like ease of build. Build of ease? You just plug it in and the can goes. Where Rivian stopped short of is what Tesla did with Cybertruck. And so Cybertruck obviously went to 48 volts, but they also went to a fully redundant everything. And this is in preparation for level 5 autonomy, Waymo, which is technically 4. But you can, if the network does get cut, it will revert to CAN, but it doesn't have a loop of Ethernet that can just sort of self-fix and ignore all kinds of shit. And obviously they didn't go to 48 volts because nothing's available yet.
Unless you make it yourself.
Unless you start over and make it for yourself and then talk to the suppliers and say, here's the plans, build it. So then what they did was totally revamped its autonomous. There's a autonomy, like I think it's called Rivian Autonomy Plus platform, which is their self-driving, their sort of autopilot, for lack of a better term. 10 times more AI computing ability, 8 times more at ADAS resolution. So the computer can see 8 times more, 3 times more for surround view resolution, blah, 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 blah. But more importantly, they went to 11, I think it is. This I don't have written down for some reason. 11 radar sensors. Or maybe it's 11 cameras and 7 radar sensors. Whatever. It's in here somewhere. But there are
Check your Instagram post. Maybe it's in there.
I mean, the problem was the Instagram post I made from my actual notes, and this is my executive summary, and I'm really bad. This will be in here somewhere.
The net result of this is?
The net result is, oh my God, the thing drives itself really well. Mm-hmm. So they're all proud of it. Can make lane changes. You put the turn signal on and it makes a lane change. I'm like, okay, that's nice. Sure. Whatever. Don't care. But more importantly, when you activate it, which this is a first, I haven't seen this yet. So they use a Mercedes style column shift with push up for reverse, push down for drive
through the detent.
And then Tesla used to do a double press down before they got rid of the stalk completely, which fucking drives me crazy. This one is now pull towards you twice to activate cruise, which is pretty. So boom, boom, towards you and then push away to cancel. And that's a nice thing because do you really want to, it's always seemed a little awkward to put your car in drive again to do autopilot.
Yeah. I agree.
So they did that. Yes. I'm sorry. 11 cameras and now can see up to 1,000 feet away in front of the car.
It's not 300 meters?
It's 300 meters. Which is 1,000 feet.
980 feet.
Which is 10 seconds at highway speed. Which is, they say, the most visibility of any car. It has 5 advanced
the same
radars.
number as the Waymo.
Yeah, it's true. It is. The computer can do 250 trillion operations per second, more than 10 times more than the previous one. And their comment on that was that this Gen 2 Rivian R1 will be the most powerful computer that any of the owners own. Most of the owners own. Which is kind of interesting. Like we're always talking about computers on wheels, and here it is. The big update to this car is computers. It's all computers. And then of course the hardware, they they put new wheels on it. So it's got a new 22-inch wheel that with a cool color cover on it that like all the shit's going so retro. It looks like old Ronald turbos from back in the day. And
well, you know that there are Porsche people there. That's why the color palette is so many Porsche colors. There's like 3 or 4 colors in the Rivian palette that are all just redos of old Porsche colors.
Oh shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, the yellow is just Porsche Bahama yellow from the late 60s. The blue is Porsche Oslo blue. I mean, it's probably not identical, but it's very clear that it's inspired by an actual Porsche color.
Huh.
That's Oslo blue, which is like a 356 color from the late 50s, early 60s.
I mean, the whole company is kind of design led, right? The whole one of the best parts about the truck to me is
that's
the
why
simple
it's such
design.
a compelling product.
You know, it's funny because Jeff sort of seemed a little bit beat up when I was talking to him about the design of the car. You know, and he's like, "Oh, so many people don't like the headlights," and it kind of sucks.
Really?
Because I think it's a spectacular industrial design. Like,
yeah, I
it's
agree. There's something timeless about it. I think it's going to age well.
Yeah,
it's not fussy either. There's so many modern cars that are fussy. You know, I mean, certainly Hyundai, Kia fall victim to this.
Yeah, a friend of ours.
Everyone does. Mercedes. I mean,
right,
now all the old bastions of rational design, you know, and rational, elegant design are.
Here he goes. We're going to go to
Bruno
Sacco.
Sacco. Okay, we talked about Bruno Sacco. Okay, I did it. Let's move on.
A friend of ours just bought an Ioniq 5N, and thank God he bought it in the sort of burnt orange color because you don't see the orange accents and half of the other shit that's all over the car. And as much I keep going back to that, like I should want an Ioniq 5N, and I absolutely don't. And I really think it comes down to I don't like that they ruined that fucking design. Mm-hmm. It was so clean. It was overdone to begin with, as far as I was concerned.
Yeah, it has all those creases surfaces,
and I was fine with it because in the right color and the right look,
burnout tire
amazing.
Wheel arch extensions. Have you seen those? The way that have you ever seen like a dragster doing a really hard launch and the tire actually does that? The rubber tire, the sidewall, it deforms in this spirally way. And I always thought that the wheel arch extensions, I assume,
sort of
are designed to evoke that.
Yeah, I can't. But no, I love the way those trucks look because I get the criticism of the front being cartoonish because they do look like eyes. I mean, I literally referred them to as eyes a couple minutes ago, but I was kind of surprised to hear that. I'm like, it's kind of a design triumph. Like, what are you worried about?
Yeah, surprised to hear that also.
Yeah, but they really did not need to fuck with the exterior. The interior, they did a couple things that I would tortured them. Like they got rid of the really nice metal grab handles for the doors.
Which feel like a Range Rover L322 one.
Right.
They felt identical to Range Rover
square
L322.
That your hand goes in and thunk, they're perfect. And they replaced them with a fucking button. And so I was on a bit of a mission to be that bitch and ask every single person. I just wanted one good reason why. And no one could give me a good reason why. They gave me a couple bad reasons.
I bet it's cheaper.
It's not.
What?
Yeah. By the time you buy the actuator.
Piece of hardware and all that is not.
Because it still has to have the manual door release when that invariably breaks. So which is now blacked out. You don't even see it. You don't get to interact with it. It's cheaper. It's plastic and it's, but overall, somebody asked for it and they did it. And sort of everyone seemed kind of like, well, our customers kind of expect it. And I'm like, what? Do they really? Like, why can't I just reach over and open it? I just think that's stupid. Yeah. But they do have all plaid interior colors available now.
Plaid?
And it's not just like, it's not like Bruno Sacco era Mercedes plaid that's just look at it the wrong way and you could get a little bit nauseous.
Because it has such fine checking.
Fine checking. It's very broad and it's subtle checking on the colors. And I just am in love.
Like a Swiss hotel room. This is probably going to be some kind of insert, Jake.
It's
stitched in. Oh, the carpets are lovely.
No. The carpets are that way. It's in the seats. It's on the back of the door pulls, in the inside of the mat pockets. It's all subtle everywhere.
I think it's great.
Fucking beautiful.
Yeah,
I love
like
that.
a Swiss hotel room.
Yes. Again, for those who don't know what a Swiss hotel room is, whatever. And so then they're going through the infotainment system and they've done all kinds of new graphics and they've simplified everything. So instead of 3D stuff, it all just kind of looks like drawing and it's all done by Unreal Engine. And I honestly couldn't give a shit less. It looks like a cartoon done by a person, doesn't fucking matter. And then they showed us Dolby Atmos. And so Atmos is sort of the next generation of of surround sound. It's basically three-dimensional objects in space can be placed acoustically in different places. So you close your eyes and you listen to some of the stuff that was in there, and it's fucking amazing. I mean, there's reverb coming from there. There's a singer over there. There's a fucking instrument back there. It's just so good.
Is that data supplied in the digital recordings that we have? Like, how does
it's probably pulled out in remixes, and it is available through.
Because this is like when stereo introduced and it was recorded in mono, you can't add stereo to it. So
you can now by
see how far back I had to go to find a reference that I understood.
Well, but it's the same thing with quadraphonic sound. I don't know if you're probably old enough, being in your 90s, to remember quadraphonic sound, which was like Pink Floyd did all the time. And you'd have to have a quadraphonic stereo system and turntable,
the recording,
or 8-track. I think they were 8-track. I think it was an 8-track that was quad.
But
yeah,
it has to be
8-track.
encoded somewhere in the recording. Otherwise, it can't be, even if you have the equipment.
And then THX. I mean, we had a Infinity M45 when I started at Automobile that had this unbelievable sound system in it because it had speakers in the headrest and speakers above your head, and people were all over the place. And it's amazing for 2 minutes, and then it goes away. But, it's a party trick. And okay, in this thing you can camp in it because it's a camping friendly vehicle. So they're showing me this and they're like, and look, all of these this music is supplied through Apple Music, so we had to make a native application for Apple Music within the infotainment system so we could get this Atmos stuff. And I'm like, CarPlay? And they were like, no, ours is better. And I'm like, the fuck it is. Isn't it like 97% of new car buyers won't even consider a there without CarPlay? They're like, yeah, but ours is better. And I'm like, but isn't it the customer's demand that this is better? There was one person almost in tears, but I would not relent. I'm like, listen, do you guys understand that I wouldn't buy this car? I think the billions of dollars in investment that you've made in this car, and now to re-engineer the whole thing from start to finish for the electrical architecture, new motors, new batteries, new whatever, and you still won't put CarPlay in it? And they were making every excuse under the sun. No, ours is better, ours is this, ours is better. I'm like, I don't give a shit. Give me, as a customer, please give me the choice of using this so-called inferior system. Or they're like, why do you need it? We have integrated Apple Music, which is grossly ironic that they've integrated that so that they could get the fucking Atmos. But I'm like, but you don't have Waze, do you? And they're like, well, no, we use our Google Base. Stop. You don't have Waze. They're like, correct. And now you took away my lighter point. So I'm driving down the street with my tits out, no bra on even, flapping in the breeze, naked and exposed to every police officer who's going to target my tits. Of course, you got to put some comedy in there when you're beating them up. But I was beating these engineers. I'm like, you guys fucked up. I would not buy this car because I can't have Waze and I can't have a radar detector. And I'm not going on a road trip in it. I'm just not doing that. And they were like, well, we could do an integrated, like,
you put a suction cup on the screen and put your phone on there. And
well, then they're like, oh, but the chargers are right here. And I'm like, but I can't see them. Oh, well, we have a thing that you can stand up your phone to see it.
Between your...
No, it's in the center console. I'm like, that's great. It stands up right there. Number one, I can't see what's on the bottom, which is where it says police detected ahead, number one. And number two, I'm going to look down and have a fucking accident because you can't put Waze in the goddamn in infotainment system. And they're like, well, we have native Spotify. Okay. So let me just give you a little bit of a scenario here. This is Derek's car. I didn't use your name. It was the name of somebody else. Derek's car. And I go to buy it. And now I can't listen to Spotify because Derek's listening to Spotify on the same account somewhere else. Or do I now have to buy another? Now Spotify just told me they're going up to like $13 or $14 a month, whatever it is. $14 a month so that two people who use the car can listen at the same time. Oh, and then also I have to have a data plan on the car. Why the fuck do I need to have any of that when it's all on here? And then they're like, well, but it updates and it does this and whatever. Stop. What happens when Spotify goes away and is replaced by Poopify? 877 cars for kids. K-A-R-S cars for kids. Or whatever is the next greatest music. So because we started with Napster and then we kind of go down the line of this progression of music or navigation systems or whatever else. Now, as a customer with a 6-year-old Rivian that doesn't have baked in onboard Poopify, Now my car is fucking redundant. Or are you going to have programmers in the back who are just like, okay, now we have to do native integration of X, Y, and Z. I'm like, this is an ego game that you guys are going to fucking lose. Whoever is making the decision to say we don't need Apple CarPlay or Google Android Auto, is just thinking that you're doing something better than everyone else. Number one, you are unequivocally not, and you never will, because you're a car company. Stop trying to beat the tech companies. And number two, your car is not updatable ad nauseum the way your phone is. As a mirroring,
replaceable. You replace the phone, and
but as a mirroring thing, and my phone, when Spotify gets replaced, or somebody comes out with a better Waze, or somebody comes out with a better podcast provider or something else, it will automatically update in my car. I never have to worry about this again. You're now telling me my car will be obsolete, needs a data plan, and I have all these limitations on me when it's all fucking right here. So I go in your nav, and I was just on my computer at home looking up how to get to the Carmudgeon studio. So it should be in my history. I go in my car, CARMU. Oh, it's not there. It's in my fucking phone. Give me the option of please using CarPlay. So I brutalized them over it. And it's really that much of for me, a purchase consideration, and not just for me. It's for, now proven to be 90% of the market. So much so of a purchase consideration that I just put a CarPlay unit in 3 of them, well, 2. The other one will be installed this weekend in my old cars. I want Bluetooth connectivity. I would like to have CarPlay. I'd like to have the ability for Waze to be playing in the background. Why is it that the old cars can be updated to this shit, but a new fucking architecture with new motors, and god damn it, I drank way too much of that coffee.
Yeah, I see that. It looks like you cut yourself off, though. It's over there now.
I mean, half, which means 1.5 shots plus a kilo of cocaine.
Okay, so
wonderful consumer product with one glaring omission, which is phone mirroring, and one smaller one, which is its suspension was originally designed for off-roading, which it does unbelievably well. Also, we sort of took it like drifting on a dirt course, and we got a ride in the 3-motor, and it was spectacular. That was their sort of chassis tuning guy, just jumping it, landing sideways in the middle of a drift, which really pissed off the computers. And then we did a 2-motor, and even the 2-motor trail brakes beautifully, and like beautiful, dare I say, perfect chassis balance. And then I think, why? Do we need a pickup truck that has perfect chassis balance, torque vectoring, and does 0 to 60 in 2.5?
Would have been nice to spend that engineering energy on solving the ride quality problem instead.
Which they really, if I'm to believe them, they can't. And although I will say one other thing about CarPlay is there was an actual journalist in the car with me, ex-coworker of mine who's now working for Car and Driver. And he did ask while I was on this fucking rant about CarPlay. And he's like, no, let me just ask one question. How many engineering man hours would it actually take to integrate CarPlay into your software? And I, of course, was like, none, it's made to be fucking done, whatever. And they were like, yeah, a couple, nothing. So RJ Scaringe, if you're listening to the Carmudgeon Show podcast, put your fucking ego aside and give your customers the choice so they buy your fucking trucks, because I really want your company to survive long enough to make an R3 for me, which is the fucking hottest car I've seen in the last 10 goddamn years. And I don't want them to go bankrupt before they give a chance to give me one.
Because nobody buys cars if they don't have CarPlay in them.
Well, GM's about to find out. Like all the car companies want to stop this because they think of themselves as tech companies, but they all suck. I mean, Tesla's infotainment system is the best in the business in terms of like a fully comprehensive overall one. And their messaging platform sucks because Bluetooth doesn't have the ability to do what you need to be able to see your text messages on screen and reply. Nothing is nearly as good as CarPlay is. And so, I have friends that have Teslas that regret buying the car because they miss CarPlay so much. Wow. And they all sort of agree it's the best transportation device they've ever owned, but they're like, if it just had CarPlay, like it would make my life so easier. My navigation destinations are in there. My, Waze is in there. All of this other stuff is just there. Yeah. My contacts, it's just easier that way. And I say, if it's a couple hours, why not give them a fucking choice? But
I'm not. I just don't CarPlay that much. I have one car with CarPlay in it, and
Do you not miss it in the other cars?
I mean, those cars barely have speakers. Some of them. I really like looking at the original head units in my cars. All of my Mercedes Benzes have the original Becker head units in them. That to me adds a lot.
All of my Mercedes period does too. It's a single car. I only have one, and it does. Mercedes is kind of the one where I
Giving up
will
a
not.
Becker. I love the old Beckers, and I just.
So mine, obviously, we've talked about this before. Becker Auto Sound in New Jersey, which is Becker. They will rewire your old Becker radio to either have an aux input or now Bluetooth.
But you have to give up the cassette player if you get the Bluetooth.
I'm fine with that compromise.
Oh,
but you can't.
The cassettes.
You also can't talk on the phone with it. They don't do a microphone. It's just Bluetooth audio streaming.
Right. Yeah.
There is a guy in Europe somewhere. I think he's in Eastern Europe that does conversion for BMW head units that will allow you to do phone calls. And I might do one of those. They're a little bit too expensive for me, but it would be nice in my E30 to have that screen, like the original, the screen in the radio, and be able to have calls and whatnot. But I have a subwoofer in that car, and those radios don't have sub controls. So I like that, but I demand Bluetooth. And so
I just don't. I immerse myself fully in the old car experience when I'm driving an old car.
you use your headphones.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah, you're not emerging. Look, we're doing it. We're all
Working around. I guess I meant for music.
What I've come down to doing after our Rover road trip, where a friend brought a Bluetooth like lighter socket thing, I've been doing that.
Those things work pretty well.
It works well enough. Yeah. I mean, it's the only reason I'm ever going to use a radio.
The ROAV.
Yeah, so it transmits to 105.5 or whatever you have it set at.
Or 87.7, some weird
unused
frequency that no one is using.
But it's a better solution. But if I could have a blank out plate, something that looks like a blank out plate with CarPlay in it, I would have it on every car and just deal with the aesthetics of it. Except I think on the Mercedes.
Yeah.
I kind of have to have a Becker. And I love how those were so panned.
Yeah. John Davis, every single time he had a chance to complain about a Becker 1432, he would do it. And then they were so delighted in 1994 when the 1492. This is an area of obscurity that we need not go into. Anyway, it was widely panned. I love the star button. There's a star button. The
star button is everything.
The star button allows you to dial in your radio frequency without scrolling through all of the radio frequencies.
Star 981.
Yes.
Yeah, done. You're at 98.1.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Star 1077. It's so good. Yeah. But to me, I love the protruding volume control, and I do not. I will always prefer an analog sort of turning wheel.
knob.
But if you're going to do a digital knob, having it protrude up and down is just so those. I don't understand why every car magazine always
shat on them, because they had so many different buttons, and people were not used to technology being new. And there's a lot of buttons on those things, and they're all small, and they all look the same and feel the same.
Okay, so later on, Mercedes did the star button together with a numeric keypad.
Yes.
So when they added Bluetooth to the cars, then it was like star, and
this
it was like using a calculator.
Becker. Yeah, this is the late Becker.
You could change 400 radio stations in a minute. Just type in it, type in whatever you wanted.
Yeah, this is like in late 90s. Anyway, so Rivian is a compelling product. I wish that all new cars had that level of... I think the things most about the Rivian that I like, I think the design language is beautiful. I like that it's so spare and elegant and timeless and tasteful. I think it's really going to age well. I think also the product thinking that is in that car, every sort of touch point that you interact with, and it feels thoughtful. Where the Tesla is sort of a little bit cheap and austere in some respects, I think that the experiential like aesthetic of the Rivian has a sort of premium. Premium. It's like a Swiss hotel room.
Like, shut up. I mean, it's missing a couple of controls. I would really like to have actual mirror controls rather than having to do it in the touchscreen. It's not something
at
you
least
do
it's a
all the
function
time.
you don't use that much.
Right. There are other stupid. I shouldn't say stupid.
Like a shifter. Right?
It has a shifter and it has turn
that's
signals,
the Tesla
right?
complaint is that they do something you use so often. If it's something you use very occasionally, I don't mind it being in this.
So they fucked up a couple things. Like, so each spoke at the 9 o'clock and 3 o'clock spoke has a spinny wheel that's surrounded by a left-right button, like a hard button, left-right. And the right side is ADAS and the left side is music. But the left side, you can now hold the center button, which is otherwise play, pause, or mute, pause, like mute, unmute. and cycle through a bunch of screens there. And I think there are 3 or 4 of them. It's like radio, nav direction, like turn by turn nav directions, efficiency, which is very limited, or tire pressure. Those are your 4 screens. But you don't know because none of the things are marked. There's not a single marking on anything. And then once you're in that screen, those buttons still stay radio. So it's like next song, previous song, and volume on the left. And then the right one is the one I have a big problem with, which is that's ADAS. And the spinny wheel is following distance. And the left-right buttons are speed. Okay. Your choice on following distance, you have 4 choices. Close, less close, far, more far, right? There's 4 settings, I think. So why do I have...
That's why everyone always has a dedicated button and you just toggle through the 4 settings.
Right. Why do I have an infinite scroll spinny wheel for 4 settings? And then I can set the speed anywhere between, 10 and 130 miles an hour. And yet I have to sit there and you can hold it down and whatever. But that's just another thing like where somebody wasn't thinking this through. Like how often do you change the following distance on your adaptive cruise control?
Every time you turn it on because it always follows too far.
Not if you reprogram your e-golf and have it start in psycho mode every time, which is what I do, which is what it should do.
I would love that because that was so annoying. Every time you use it, you have to cycle down to close.
I told my car.
Otherwise, people are cutting in constantly.
I told my car, you are in Rome. Do as the Romans. But yeah, no, you adjust the speed all the time. That's what you should have a spinning. That's just dumb. Little ergonomic like foibles like that. But overall, to your point, it has real turn signals. It has, an actual shifter.
What we are doing with these products always, anytime we make a purchasing decision, whether it's a house or whatever, you just make the decision that gets you the least badness, gets you the most goodness, and this is to me is pretty decisively that. And so you forgive little foibles.
Yeah, especially once you factor in the packaging. I mean, the frunk is huge. The back seat, the third row on an R1S is genuinely habitable by 2 large adults. That's amazing. R1, I can't wait for R2 because I sat in the back of R2, and apparently second row in R2 is bigger than second row in R1 because it doesn't have to have the provisions for the third row. Like their packaging stuff is just unbelievable. And I like a box, right? I want a box with I can fill with all kinds of stuff. Oh God, no. Okay. I like vehicles that are shaped like a carton so that they may haul a bunch of
other smaller carton-shaped items.
Yes. And so if the whole point of a car is to transport stuff from A to B, let's maximize the amount of stuff that we can fit into one
and outlaw space. Cayenne coupes and X6s
and X4s and
all that dumb shit.
Any electric car that doesn't have a frunk should be outlawed. Should be legal.
Yeah.
Like, it's possible to do it.
Thank you, Volkswagen.
Or just maybe assigned a penalty. There's a $10,000 surcharge because you're inefficient.
You're not eligible for the federal refund if your car if it doesn't have a frunk.
Yeah, exactly. No amber turn signals. You don't get a top safety pick plus. No frunk. Well, no federal tax incentive rebate. Let me say one final thing. I am very sick of this versus that exclusivity argument between EVs and internal combustion engines. And we should probably do an entire episode on this, but I want to say just because I'm a big fan of an electric Rivian SUV and think it's one of the most compelling vehicles on the market doesn't mean I don't see the merits in a Jaguar F-Pace SVR, which I absolutely adore. And so I want everyone listening to really think about the necessity of saying it has to be one or the other. We can like both. We can get the Subaru people out of Subarus and save some gas. Let us burn it and put them in something electric. If you want the world's fastest car, you can have an electric car. You can have the world's fastest combustion car. I don't care what you do. I just wish that people weren't so violently opposed to one or the other that they won't even talk to each other.
No one should have an EV. I mean, yes. The point is, if you don't support abortion, don't get an abortion, right?
Oh, we are not politicizing this to that level.
That's not a political topic. It shouldn't be a political topic, but it has become a political topic. The point is that if you don't like X, then don't buy one and, vote with your pocketbook. And the fact of the matter also is that there's so many people, every person who has more than one vehicle and has an EV, they also have, car enthusiasts, they all have an EV and, people who own them also have combustion cars.
Not all, but yes. I see
No, but like car enthusiasts will be like, I have this for that, and I have that for this. And
different functions for different things.
Yeah, you know, it's like, do you have only one pair of shoes and you just have to do everything in flip flops, or like? Yeah.
I get your point. Certainly, I do, and you have in the past had an EV daily that's a beater, a dinghy, and the e-Golf is a dinghy. But you know, I have learned not to get into intellectual debates with you, but I'm going to disagree about one thing. The reason I think a lot of people are so upset about this is because they perceive that the government is pushing this down their throats, right? The government is telling them they need to buy an electric vehicle and therefore fuck those things, right? I think that is very different than an abortion, right? No, the government's never telling you you're going to have an abortion. That I think we can all agree would be dramatically overreaching.
Right. But people who react against that legislation are creating the same false equivalency.
Yeah.
Which is to say that the government is mandating that you do this. The government is not doing any such thing. EVs, yes, potentially coming down the pike.
Yeah.
And that's the question in like Germany, and, you know, California is also trying to do stuff like this as well.
I think on the abortion debate, those which I would love to have, but we are absolutely not going to. No. It becomes a question of, I believe this is harmful to a person or whatever, and therefore it's out of bounds, right? I think,
but someone else could say, I believe that consuming alcohol to excess is harmful.
It absolutely is, and maybe we should.
But it's not illegal.
Right. My point on the EV is, I think all of this whole this whole debate comes from the government and sort of science saying, okay, this shit's bad for the planet. Let's find a way forward that's less bad for the planet. And this is the way forward that we've identified, right? So it comes from not at this point, I don't accept anyone's argument that internal combustion engines aren't bad for the environment. Like, it's just fucking obvious. Let's stop.
Yeah, but EVs have their own sort of shortcomings that are just sort of, are we just moving the tax on the planet somewhere else?
And I'm happy to have that debate. But until you can convince the scientists that the EVs aren't a far better solution, I can't weigh in. I'm not an environmentalist, like scientist who studies all of this all the time. It's a solution, whether we go to hybridization, we go to PHEVs, we go to EVs, whatever the fuck it is. I just wish we could have a real conversation about this and everyone could stop saying, fuck that goddamn microwave. I don't care how fast it does 0 to 60.
This is the sort of politicization. It's a weird type of politicization where the individual merits of something are being overshadowed by sort of positionality or politics or a whole bunch of shit that has nothing to do with how good the product actually is when viewed objectively.
Thank you. That was a very elegant way of saying what I said to somebody on Instagram who's like, you supporting these things is like, blah, 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 virtue signaling, park one in front of your San Francisco mansion, you asshole. And I'm like, yeah, you go ahead and park because parking a Raptor in front of your Texas trailer park doesn't fucking say something political about you. Let's stick to the fucking cars here for a second and stop talking about your perceived political implications of whatever this is to drive. So with that, thank you for your intelligent agreement with me. Stick a fork in that. Shut the fuck up. And if you don't like a fucking EV, go drive one first of all, and then make your decision about, I don't like the way this car drives, or I do like the way this car drives, or maybe it's great, but it's not for me. And then shut the fuck up and stop telling people what else to buy.
Yep.
God,
amen.
Damn it. How long? We've gone on way too long.
All right. Well, let's just continue here. Thank you for joining us for this week of the Carmudgeon Show.
I'm just going to
with plenty of Carmudgeonation.
In my day,
we had our cars powered by steam.
That's the way it was, and we liked it.